Hey everybody, this is Joe Pace with Icewater Yoga, and today we're going to be covering stretches for the inflexible. And so if you're a person who considers yourself not flexible, you're not any worse than anybody else, okay? You may feel like you're lost in a yoga class because generally yoga classes attract people who are already flexible, but just because you don't have as much range of motion as somebody else doesn't mean you can't use yoga to develop more range of motion, and that doesn't mean that you can't do yoga in the first place. I hear people say all the time that I don't do yoga because I'm not flexible, and it's painful to hear because yoga is going to be such a great way for that person who's saying that to actually develop that range of motion that they're looking for. Okay, so we're going to cover 5 specific areas of the body today. We're going to keep it very simple, very straightforward. I don't want you to think too much or worry too much about any sort of complex poses, so we're going to keep it simple. And we're also going to use props, okay? So you don't necessarily have to have these things. I'll give you some other options. If you do have a strap, that's a great thing to have. You can also use a belt. A belt's a great one that most people have. And a block, or really anything to elevate the floor for you. So generally when we're not as flexy in our muscles, we use blocks to make different poses more accessible. And the first one we'll talk about is actually a seated forward fold, and that's a great one for the hamstrings. Get anything that you can comfortably sit on. Doesn't have to be a block, it can be a pillow. Again, anything that elevates your hips to elevate the floor. Sit on whatever you're sitting on and grab your belt or strap. All right, so we'll try this one. I'll give you an opportunity to test it yourself. So you're sitting on the block and you're sitting towards the edge of the block or towards the edge of whatever you're sitting on. You're gonna bend your knees extremely deeply, okay? So don't worry about having straight knees at all to start. Bend your knees really deeply. Put the strap around the balls of your feet. So that's step 1. And then from here, grab each side of the strap with both hands or with either hand, and then extend your heels out, all right? So this may be as far as you're gonna go today. That's a great place to be. You can grab or combine the sides of the strap, grab them both with both hands, sit tall, and then if you feel comfortable, you have 2 options. 1 is to extend the heels further away from you, or 2, forward fold, not letting your spine flex forward, but thinking about drawing the chest straight forward. Okay, that's going to be a safer movement for your low back, and it's also going to give you the ability to actually control what you're doing in your hamstring. All right, so those are your 2 options. Use the strap to your advantage. Eventually, you can get to the point where you have the strap in both hands, maybe both knees are straight while sitting on a block. You fold. You can remove the block with bent knees, with a strap, or forward fold. So you can take a chance now, pause the video, do that for about a minute, see how it feels in the hamstrings, get a feel for it. Now that you have done that, let's move into the second one, which is shoulder flossing. All right, so you can do this standing or you can do this sitting down at a desk or in a chair. It doesn't have to be anything special. I'm gonna sit on a block here. Shoulder flossing is just using a prop like a strap or a belt to give your shoulders an ability to explore the edges of the range of motion. To start, we'll grab a strap and extend our hands out in front of us with the strap, just like so. We'll grab it from both sides. And now from here, if you feel like you're really tight in the shoulders, your hands are probably gonna start a little bit wider. All right, as you start to develop more range of motion in the shoulders, the hands can be closer together. So starting with hands wide, you'll extend forward with the arms and feel as though you're ripping the strap apart. Slide your shoulder blades down your back. So you want to keep your shoulders far from your ears this whole time, and then you lift. So the flossing part means you're getting into the nooks and crannies of the shoulders. When you feel like you're reaching a stuck point or you can't go any higher, you widen the grip on the strap, go a little bit higher, you reach another sticky point, go a little bit higher, and higher, continuing to draw your hands apart, but still pulling the strap apart. You can come all the way overhead to whatever limit your shoulders allow and whatever feels productive in your body. And then use this opportunity with your hands wide to simply come back to neutral in a nice, easy forward rotation. Draw the hands back together. What you want to do is really just get the shoulders to a point where you're feeling an edge, but you're not ever crossing past that edge. You don't want to break through any barriers the shoulders are creating for you. All right, so that's shoulder flossing. The next one we're going to talk about is low lunge. This is a great one for the hip flexor, and we can also add the quad in with the strap. So we're actually going to start with the strap in hand, the right leg forward, and the left leg back with the left knee against the ground. You're going to have the left knee underneath your left hip, and you're going to wrap the strap around your left leg. You can grab the strap with one hand, and again, left knee is right under left hip, right foot, right heel is right underneath right knee. So from here, without the strap, you can lift up, hands are tall, and then you can shift the hips forward in space, not letting them pitch down, but shifting forward. And eventually over time, you can start to walk the front foot further away, continuing to shift the hips forward, again, getting a big stretch in the hip flexor. Now, if you feel comfortable here with the squared off front knee and the squared off back knee, you can grab your strap and add in a pretty big quad stretch. So if this doesn't feel comfortable on your left knee, put a blanket or something underneath it, and then you can pull the strap towards you. Left heel will come to your butt, and then you can again shift the hips forward. That'll make a bigger stretch, not only in your hip flexor, but all the way down into your quad as well. So that's pretty safe, especially if you don't have as much range of motion. You may not even be able to lift this foot off the ground. That's okay, but eventually it'll start to come a little bit further off the mat. The next one we're going to talk about is figure 4, because I really want to help you get into the outer hip, because it's where we store a lot of tension and stress. Same thing with the shoulders, so that's why we're covering it. Figure 4 is actually really simple. You'll lay on your back, you'll keep the base of the back, the sit bones, as close to the floor as you can, and you'll cross one ankle over the opposite knee. Now, this may feel like a big movement for you, okay? So if you can't quite get there, don't worry about it. Just extend the left leg long, and then gently pull the right knee in towards you and just feel an outer hip stretch. So you don't have to get the external rotation of the hip with the right heel coming into your midline. You can actually just hug your right knee in and get a hip stretch. But if you can bring that right ankle over the left knee, you're in a great spot to get a bigger outer hip stretch. Flex your right toes towards your right knee, and then gently hug your knees both in towards your chest the same amount. So you don't want one knee moving further than the other. Just let both of them come towards you at equal amount, and then equally back down to the mat. Switch sides. And a minute on each of these is going to feel really good in the outer hip. The final one we're going to talk about today isn't necessarily a stretch, because it's more of a movement, but it's so important to really address the spine when you don't have as much range of motion throughout the body. So we're just going to do a really simple movement called cat and cow. Hands are directly underneath the shoulders, knees are directly underneath the hips, and all you're doing is straightening through both elbows, doing your best to spin your biceps forward, and then from there, simply lift your chest through your arms and lift your tailbone high. There will be a little arch in your back. This is cow pose. And then from here, exhaling, you dip your tailbone, you hug your chin towards your chest, and you spread your shoulder blades wide like you're pressing the middle point between your shoulder blades towards the ceiling. And then you come back and forth, just taking those movements. Inhale takes you to cow. Exhale takes you to cat. And you can even explore keeping the cat pose in the upper back and sitting down towards your heels, which will feel really good as a nice tall stretch up your back. Okay, so we've addressed 5 areas of the body with 5 different poses or movements that we use in yoga. They're really nice, and we accommodate our range of motion, whatever we have in our body to work with, using props and just using smarts. We don't want to force ourselves into any position that doesn't feel right for the body. And we also just want to do stuff that feels good and feels productive. So I hope you had a chance to try these out. Come back to this video over time. It's going to feel just as good every time. Look forward to working with you again.